Hello, and thank you for joining me today. Today, I would like to talk to you about fear, specifically the fear that holds us back from fully trusting in the Lord. Fear is something that I believe that can affect us all. It can take a hold of us and seem overwhelming. It can get you in a place of total darkness, where there seems like there is really nothing for you to hold on to, where it seems completely and utterly hopeless. It's like you can have confidence in the Lord, but when that spirit of fear comes on you, it can just crush that confidence. It would be like a poison in your mind that just begins to seep in and grow and just spread throughout your body. And the thing is, the spirit of fear will stay there as long as we are feeding it. We feed it by simply just allowing it to drive us away from the Lord, away from what He's called us to do, by being disobedient, by not fully trusting in Him, by doubting. We doubt His Word. We doubt these messages that He gives us. We doubt that He's going to come through. We doubt that I'm in over my head, is He going to help me here? Is He? But instead of running to the Lord, we run from Him. Or maybe we just dig in our heels and we just don't move at all. Because fear is just it's taken a hold of us and has gripped us so strongly that we don't know what to do. And I remember a guy I worked with one time, and I was getting ready to leave that job and move to another, and we were talking one day, and he's a called preacher. I don't know if I never had spoken to him again since that day, but I do know he had a calling in his life, and I remember talking to him one day about that and how he is running from it at that time. And he told me, he said, "Josh, I'm afraid of the deep water." And it's like, he's on the shore, but God's called him to be out in the deeper part of the water. But he told me, he says, "But Josh, I'm afraid of the deep water." And I remember was like, "Lord, what do I tell this man?" He's sharing this fear with me, and your word can help him in 100%. It can set him free from it. What do I tell him, Lord? And I remember very clearly, I was standing there with him, and I said to him, I called him by his name and said, I said, "Why do we fear the deep water when we serve a king that can walk on water?" And it was as much encouragement to me as I hoped it was to him. Because as God calls us to go to deeper waters and to, I say, uncharted territories and stuff, as we talked about before, that obedience, as He calls you to walk in that obedience, some things are going to be similar and some things are going to be new. But nonetheless, we're walking out on faith. And that spirit of fear is gonna attack us. It's gonna try to detour you from doing what the Lord wants you to do. It starts taking our hope in the Lord. It takes our strength. And it starts feeding on anything that is good in our spirit, until it completely smothers it and kills it. And what seemed like a small seed of fear has now taken root in us and has begun to grow. And here comes that worry and anxiety and depression. And all of these are forms of that spirit of fear. Yeah, sure, they got different names for it and all, but it's all from that root that we allowed to be planted. And now that it's planted, we sometimes even feed it by giving it that fertilizer that it is just craving in us. So what do we do now? First thing is we have got to turn to the Lord. We've got to get to Him no matter what it takes. I said before, praying and fasting, whatever you need to do to get to Him, you've got to get to Him. Get rooted back in His Word. But once we get back to Him and His Word, that spirit of fear is weakened. And that seed of fear that had started growing in us begins to wither and dry up. Because we made the decision about what we are feeding ourselves. Instead of darkness, we are now feeding ourselves light. Jesus said in John 8:12, says this, says, Then spake Jesus again unto them, saying, I, being the Lord, am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. He that follows the Lord will not walk in that darkness, but we will have light, which is the Lord, in our lives. But that spirit, when it does come in us and starts to try to control us, it drives us from following the Lord. Like I said, it drives you down a dark path. I remember a while back, the Lord had asked me and my wife to move from, it was Temple, Texas, to Midland, Texas. And Temple had a pretty good job there and seemed like everything was doing well, but had a lot of things I need to work on there too. But in this move, I allowed fear to come on me like I had never known. And there was a little time period I was in between jobs there, and I remember laying down one day, and it was even hard to breathe. It felt like it was truly just crushing me. My nerves were shot. It seemed like there was no light in my life. It was like, oh, poor pitiful me, and poor pitiful this, and poor pitiful that, and all I could do was just focus on all the negative things and the negative thoughts, instead of just setting my mind on the good things. It was just all terrible. I said, stop following the Lord and stop reading His Word. I was really only following darkness. And that spirit of fear was like a wedge that had driven itself between me and the Lord. And one day I walked by the mirror and I saw myself, though. And it was hard to even recognize myself in the mirror. So I started seeking the Lord again, and I started reading His Word. I didn't want what I had become. I didn't even like what I had become. My soul was just crying out for the Lord, hungry for Him. And it was a while before I started feeding it. Yes, I know the Lord will never leave us nor forsake us, but sometimes it feels like we separate ourselves from Him. We push Him away. We put Him on the back burner. And there's a reason He says, I'm the vine and you are the branches. Apart from me, you can do nothing. It's like we can't do anything. We are so weak without Him. But once I acknowledged that peace, which is the Lord, that was missing in my life, I began to seek Him again. Like I said, read His Word. Fast. Whatever I had to do to get back to Him, that's what I wanted to do. Because nothing in this world can satisfy you and give you that peace and that love and that joy like you have in the Lord. There's nothing that can do it. But in reading His Word, I came across this verse that's, for some, that's very familiar. And for some, you may have not heard it before, but it's 2 Timothy 1:7. It says, "For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." So God didn't put this spirit of fear in me and in us. He wants us to have power over fear. He wants us to be filled with love and not darkness. He wants us to have that sound mind. Like I said, not what I have become before, but He wants more for us. I talked about that seed of fear earlier and how it grows in our hearts and our minds. Now, instead of us letting it consume us, let us be rid of it. The old saying is, let us nip it in the bud and continue to walk in the Lord's light. Continue to have that spirit of power and of love and a sound mind. Let us be strong and courageous. What He's called us to do, where He's leading us to, in our waitings. Let us be strong and courageous. Let us be the sons and daughters that God has called us to be. Let us renew our minds on godly things and push everything else aside. As the apostle said in 2 Corinthians 10:5, he says, "Casting down all imaginations and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ." If anything is trying to bring you away from the Lord, take that very thought captive. Bring it to the Lord. Bring that spirit of fear to Him. Bring it captive to the Lord. Instead of you being in these shackles and these chains, shackle that spirit of fear and bring it to Him. And I know having that spirit of fear it's a terrible and dark place to be. Like I say, you'll stay there as long as you are feeding it. And I know it seems hopeless. I know that it seems like you are alone. And you feel like the Lord has abandoned you. But I promise you the Lord is there. The Lord sees you and He hears you. Let Him help you. Trust in Him and give Him control. It falls apart when we try to have control of the situation. Walk in His righteousness and in His holiness. Walk in His light. As His word says, light the path that you have for us. And let us walk in it. And as you start to do this, that spirit of fear will flee from you. It's one thing it can't live in the light. Seek the Lord. Seek Him with your whole heart. I hope and pray that this word will give you that strength to do that, to find that peace in the Lord again. That He helps you overcome that fear. He just takes it from you. And He helps you to walk in His perfect will that He has for you and I. Let us do that. Give Him our whole heart. Our whole heart. Mind, body, and soul. Until next time, thank you, and may God bless you.